the Italian Prime Minister Giorgio Meloni has said that there is no place for Islamic culture in Europe or her country, indicating that it was a threat to the European value system. This is Italy. We have heard a viral clip of the Polish Member of Parliament, Tarczyski, who said that they won't allow a single Muslim immigrant into their country. The Netherlands Prime Minister probable, Gert Witters, has asked all the Muslims in the country to get out if they believe in Quran and the law. While immigration does lead to a serious crisis, as we have seen in France and the United Kingdom, it is bizarre that India is the one that gets hounded and targeted for religious freedoms or being called Islamophobic while we are home to 200 million Muslims, people. And this is another mirror that we intend to show to Europe tonight on this program in the light of what the Italian Prime Minister said. First, listen into this and we come back.
Di compatibilità tra la cultura islamica o certa interpretazione della cultura islamica e i diritti e i valori della nostra civiltà. A me non sfugge che la gran parte dei centri culturali islamici in Italia sono finanziati dall'Arabia Saudita e l'Arabia Saudita è una nazione che a casa sua applica la Sharia e Sharia significa lapidazione per l'adulterio, pena di morte per apostasia, pena di morte per omosessualità. Credo che queste questioni vadano poste, che non vuol dire generalizzare sull'Islam, vuol dire porre il problema che c'è in atto un processo di islamizzazione dell'Europa che è molto distante dai valori della.
All right, Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, joins me in the studio to talk more about this. Mr. Sandeep Chatra, human rights defender, also with us on the program. Major Muhammad Ali Shah, defense expert, also joins us on the show to talk more about this. Well, Joyita, first up, your reaction to what the Italian Prime Minister said. When Syria happened, of course, a number of countries did allow, humanitarian entrance to a number of people from Muslim countries, but it seems that they seem to be fed up with it now. What do you think would be the reasons behind it? And this is a very staunch and a straightforward statement which is being made by the Italian Prime Minister, who's known for her diplomacy. We've seen how she interacts with the Prime Minister. She's a friend to India. But what's going on in Europe?
Well, actually, Giorgia Meloni is right of center. She has been rather outspoken about this particular issue. And one of the reasons why that she is the Prime Minister of Italy, and also, say for example, Gert Witters, that's his name actually, G-E-E-R-T, Gert actually. So the thing is, now is also one of the reasons is this influx of refugees, Islam from the Middle East and from these African, from the Muslim countries. So that is one of the reasons. Now it's a major issue. It's a major issue, immigration, illegal immigration, and what used to happen is that earlier there were governments who were welcoming these people, were giving them special privileges, as a result of which now many along with the genuine people who were refugees and who had suffered persecution of their own government and all, now along with that a lot of radicalized fringe had also entered Europe. And it is not just Europe, it has happened in the UK also, it is happening in the US, it's happening everywhere. And it's but natural that there will be a backlash, and this backlash is happening. Now, why is it that when you look at what happened to that Hamas attack on Israel, why is it that in the US you are witnessing it, in the UK, there are these Australia, there are these huge rallies, and now these huge protest demonstrations are taking place where these people are talking about, okay, of course you can talk about Israel's attack on Gaza, but no condemnation of the Hamas terrorists. And instead they are also talking about spreading Sharia in the countries that they have been invited in, about basically Muslims taking over these countries. And now it is but natural that there is going to be a backlash, and for every leader, and this is the way European, I would say, politics is headed. All the countries as time goes, and you see, the more there is a crunch on resources, the more your state is kind of taking care of these people, providing them with all sorts of benefits. And many of these people, they do not do any work, they just sit and sit on these state handouts, and they spend these state handouts, they are just feted and they come with lots of children and all. It is but natural this reaction will happen, and that's just a reflection. And this is why, you know, the problem when these countries, they start talking about, I am not saying Giorgia Meloni's Italy, but say for example in the US, when they start berating us about, you know, the treatment of quote unquote the minority Muslims and all, you know, it's such a hypocrisy. What is going on in their own country, and look at what is happening in India. I think it is the most tolerant society possible, where there is perfect coexistence. In the US, in the UK, in Europe, I mean, where is the coexistence? There is no understanding between the two people.
Mr. Chatra, what do you make of this? Is this a signal, or is this an indication that there seems to be, you know, this is anti-Islamist, you know, feeling creeping up in a number of European countries? We have seen what, you know, the Prime Minister hopeful of Netherlands has gone about saying. We know what Poland says from time to time. They take pride in the fact that there's not a single Muslim immigrant in their country. And now you have Italy also, in fact, you know, sharing the same sentiment. What do you make of this transition that's taking place? You know, let's look at it from the point of view that India is also targeted from time to time for being anti-minority, where we have 200 million Muslims who live in the country, and you know, it's all right to have a skirmish here or there, but the Western media makes a big deal about it. What kind of a deal should we make about what's happening in Europe today?
No, thank you for having me here, and I think these remarks are very unfortunate. And these come on the eve of the World or the International Migrants Day, but the week after the Global Refugee Forum, which is talking about the question of refuge in the world. But also today we are celebrating in our land, the point Joyitaji was making, the World India's Minority Rights Day. So I think this is very unfortunate. I think these represent in themselves, and that's why I'd like to look at it in a slightly broader context than just one religion. These represent in themselves turn to what I would call majoritarian tendencies along religious lines and also along racial lines. The question of refuge in Europe has been talked about. So these represent those worrying tendencies. And I think this is a direct assault on multiculturalism, and I think this needs to be challenged. This is what I would like to say. For anybody in any part of the world to say that their cultures or their religions or their way of living has no space for another in any area of the world would be actually a denial of how we have evolved as societies, how we have evolved as the world. Not just would it be a denial of the past, it's also closing doors for the future of evolution of our societies, for the future of planetary, the way we are as, you know, one intertwined planet. Vasudev Kutumbakam is always used on our land. Now, particularly for Europe to show this, that's a travesty. I mean, that's really a huge travesty, and particularly for leaders of certain European countries who themselves have been products of multiculturalism to join in and not condemn these kind of statements and send these kind of messages to their, you know, sort of short-termist politics and to their far right or right constituencies are dangerous tendencies. That's what I'd say. Europe, we all know very well, and that's the message we should be sending. Yeah, for decades, for hundreds of years, with their guns, with their germs.
Mr. Chacha, if I may just interject for one quick second, you know, only to in fact, you know, for the sake of a healthy argument between you and me, you know, there are also elements in UK and Germany who've gone on to say that they would want to see Europe under Sharia.
Of course, I mean, you see, there are radical tendencies in all religions. Yeah, but do we want to stop those tendencies? I mean, you cannot generalize all Muslims as those who are championing Sharia, those who just want the rule of Sharia. So that generalization itself defeats the argument, Vineet. Equally well, there are right-wing elements, hard right-wing elements in Christianity as well. We forget crusades. We forget those wars which have been fought in the past. So do we want to sacrifice our futures for certain elements, whether within Islam or whether within Christianity or tomorrow within any other religion? And those battles, which only create battles of civilizations, battles of societies, basis of certain fringe elements or basis of certain fundamentalist elements. So we don't want to get there. The point here, as since you are asking for this debate, the point here would be to contain those tendencies, whichever religion they may be. For coming back to the question of Europe, for Europe to say this, those who have, sort of ruled over the world, plundered the world, created genocide in the world, and continue to do so with unequal terms of trade, and continue to create refuge through direct wars and through proxy wars. We saw what happened in Afghanistan. And then go on to say we do not want to welcome, instead of stopping those tendencies, they want to now close their borders for refugees entering. You see what Italy is doing. Italy has made a deal with the developing country Albania to offshore refugees. Similarly, UK has made a deal with Rwanda in Africa to say we will export our refugees there, you keep them there, we'll see the asylum processing there. So I think this fear-mongering, this kind of fear that we are spreading in society is not factually borne out and must be contested and challenged and must be stopped. We do not want a world which is monolithic. We do not want a world which doesn't.
Let me get a response from Mohammad Ali Shah on what you've said as well, Mr. Chatra, and I completely appreciate and respect the points that you have made. Ali, what do you make of this? You as somebody who is a stand-up Muslim, you've done well for yourself in our country. India is always targeted as a country that does not, entertain the secular fabric it embraces, but that is not true. How do you feel about what's happening in Europe? And Mr. Chatra obviously made some commendable points there that Europe does not have the standing or that kind of a goodwill to be talking about Islam in the tone that they have just started to. And is this going to spell further doom for Europe? They're already in denial when it comes to their economic woes.
Okay, Vineet, that's a very, very good question, and I tend to agree with Mr. Chachra completely. Let's see. Now, the very fact is, people would be against radical Islam, right? Now, radical Islam is taking it to one extreme. Now, there have been cases, if I be very, very open and honest, there have been cases where, like for example, you spoke about the crisis in Syria. That time a lot of European countries, they opened their gates for the refugees to come in, but those refugees who came in there, they created trouble over there. They were in
Ali, the point that these leaders are trying to make is that Islam had it coming. They went about preaching and imposing Sharia, and they threatened to do that in Europe as well, and that is the reason why they're condemning it. I want you to respond to that.
So that's exactly where I was coming at. So I said, like for example, in UK, there were certain people who went there and started talking about Sharia law over there. And who are they, firstly? What? I mean, are they the ruling government? Are they the ruling power? Now, I'll give you a small example, Vineet. I have just returned a few days back from Azerbaijan, which is a Eurasian country. It's on the east of Europe and west of Asia. They follow primarily European culture. Majority of them are Muslims, but yet they do not say we are an Islamic country, we are a Muslim country. No, they've never said that. In fact, they say we are a secular country, we are open to all religions, in fact, and they are very Europeanized, in fact. So the very fact is, so as Muslims also, there is a need to do some set of introspection that why such a comment was made. Instead of just, it's very easy for me to get angry and hastily react to that comment, and or anybody else to react violently to that comment, which should not be the case. Rather, one should try to understand why a strong statement, a loaded statement like that was made. Where was it coming from? What could be the reason? Only when we actually get into the crux of the problem, of the issue, can we solve an issue. But then action and then reaction again and further. So get out of the country, that kind of stuff. So firstly, even if one has to put in a statement like this, there is a way, there's a manner, there is a much refined manner to put across a point in two different ways. So now also in UK, as an example.
Joyita, how can you possibly be diplomatic about such a thing, Joyita? Like Ali said, do you agree that, perhaps this could be a feeling, but, it would have been better if it came out through some sort of a policy announcement, if it came out, through some changes within the country's laws, but this is just putting it out in the open for the world to condemn.
Yeah, but the thing is, you see, the minute you're talking about policy changes, what kind of policy changes are you talking about? This is discriminatory.
Immigration laws, of course.
Because the thing is that, yes, and because at the same time, the minute you start clamping down on immigration.
Well, France has also done a lot of immigration changes. They have done a lot of changes when it comes to immigration, of course, also accommodating Islam in their country, but they never went about saying something like this so directly.
Well, the fact of the matter is that they did not come out and say things directly, but they did things directly. Say, for example, it was France that there was this huge crisis, I think, over hijab ban and burqa and all sorts of headdress. It is France which has done that. So, that is what I am saying, it is not about just talking. At least this lady is talking and speaking something which may seem undiplomatic, but yes, it is obviously directed at her voters and they like her. That is the reason why they have, that is one of the reasons why they have elected her, and she is speaking to her constituents. The minute she starts implementing that into action, we would have to see what kind of, how harsh that action is, and only then you can talk about rights of people, rights of immigrants, rights of what all rights they have. But you see, at the same time, while we talk about the rights of immigrants and rights of the refugees and all, what about the rights of the people of a country where they are entering? What about the rights of resources to them? Should it be a situation like what Manmohan Singh had once said in India, that minorities have the first right to resources? So, I hope that kind of a logic, and of course, I am not trying to conflate the two issues, but yes, that kind of a logic is perhaps being pursued by respective governments of certain countries in Europe and in the US and also perhaps UK, and to which there is a reaction, and that is what we are witnessing right now. And you see, the problem is that once we start saying these are a minuscule minority on the fringes, you see, when the fringe is able to muster thousands of people, they are able to muster thousands of people and go to city squares and town halls and create a ruckus over there and start giving speeches that are hateful. Say, for example, what we were witnessing, it happened in, say, for the US, I saw one video, in the UK, I saw one video, both they were Indian origin parliamentarians and senators or congressperson, I don't remember exactly. So, the thing is that now these people have gone and started blaring, these people who are supporting Palestine and Gaza, Palestinians and Hamas in all that headdress and all, they obviously belong to a particular community. Now, they are going there and disturbing the neighborhood over there, screaming and shouting, saying things like, you have to support us, you have to support Gaza, we are going to make your life hell until and unless you support Hamas and Gaza. So, what sort of behavior is this? Am I supposed to say what is happening in the Western universities, where Jewish students are being accosted by certain people, and so am I supposed to say everyone is a fringe? If I see 20, 30, 40, 50 such incidents where thousands of people are involved, is everything a fringe? Isn't it that a particular, people who are coming in, don't they also have a responsibility to behave like responsible citizens of one particular, whichever the country they have gone in? What sort of logic is this, that you are accepting the hospitality of a country is opening its doors to that, to you, and you go and insult that? Sorry, that is also not acceptable.
Mr. Chachra, how do you respond to that? It's obviously a question of, respecting the country that has given you refuge. It's also about the resources that you will be, of course, utilizing to live in that country. Should there be some sort of a semblance and respect towards that, as Joyita just pointed out?
For sure, there should be, Vinitji. I want to sort of still make a point that let's first simply understand, and that number one, religion is not the only axis for identity. Race is an important one. Here is an assault on race. We saw that during the refugee crisis when Afghans were pushed out, the Afghan refugees, to make way for the Ukrainian refugees. So it's multiple axes of identity this work on. The question of immigration, which was being talked of, is not only targeted to one axis, which is religion. It is a racial axis as far as immigration law reform changes, the regressive changes that are happening. The third thing I want to say, and in the closing, is let's first understand, and these are facts borne out with history, these are facts borne out in this century, that the creation of refuge, the northern countries, the West, owes to this world. They are the ones who have created refuge through direct wars, through proxy wars in the past, division of our country, for instance. Who would you blame for that? But let's go back into all other instances of refuge, Syria, Afghanistan, wherever you're talking of. So creation of refuge has been a historic sort of push by the West, and therefore they must learn to sort of now embrace what are the outcomes. More than that, they should stop the acts, what they have been doing ceaselessly, of creating millions and millions of people, homeless people, without a past, without a future, hanging in history. So I don't think it's a charitable question. Yes, they need to respect, they need to, sort of equally well not be given to extreme forms and coexist and learn to coexist in multicultural way, but to also say that they are only, they have to sort of, they are like people who are asking for space in another country. Let's understand how this whole thing is created. Let's understand the question of refuge, and let's push for the idea which is called the common but differentiated responsibility, that the northern countries who owe to the world of the kind of refuge they have in the past and continue to create as I speak now. So I think this is something which is also, in a sense, a right of refugees. That is what I would like to argue. And sure enough, if we want a peaceful coexistential world, then norms have to be respected, irrespective of which group we are talking of. Thank you, Viniji.
All right, Ali, quick closing comments from you, 30 seconds, and then we wrap up.
So I would like to say that, again, you asked how would one convey this point diplomatically. Firstly, but we should be very careful not to hurt anyone's sentiments, of any race, any religion, any community. Now, I would like to conclude by saying about Israel and Gaza, one should stand with humanity. Wherever you find suffering, be it what Hamas did to Israel on 7th October was wrong. Whatever whatever Israel is doing, and so many innocents are being killed in Gaza is again wrong. I would say that, Vineet. So I stand with humanity.
Can I make a quick
All right,
point?
quickly, Joyita, quickly.
Yeah, quick point. You see, when you are talking about wrong, there is some kind of an equivalence that is being drawn. At least the Israelis did not start the war by raping women and boiling babies and baking them in oven and decapitating them. So I think first let us take into account that thing. If the Hamas had not done such barbaric acts of terrorism, I think the response would not have come.
Okay, Ali's got his finger up. Ali, quickly, 10 seconds.
Jyotika, basically you are justifying the
Joyita, by the way.
innocence, right? What Hamas did was wrong. Was to be condemned completely. What Hamas did was very wrong.
She's not justifying the killing of innocents.
She's
saying
justifying.
No, she's just saying that
Leave
that's
another
how it
point.
started.
Leave another
That's how it's.
point.
Mr. Chatra also wants to make a
Leave
quick point. 10
another
seconds. 10 seconds, Mr. Chatra.
I mean, the whole thing didn't start off on the way it did with Hamas attacking. There's a deep, long history to it, and what Israel has done in that part of the world for the last 60 years, 70 years, we all know. So I don't think history starts on the 7th of November when this attack was made.
Okay, Joyita has a comeback quickly.
Very good point.
You mean to say killing babies, beheading babies, baking them in the oven is justified by history? India also suffered so much under the British. Did we go around baking English babies? For God's sake, do not talk about history.
A lot of it.
Okay, all right, we've run out of time. Okay, all right,
fact of the
let's.
matter is that babies were beheaded and they were baked in oven.
All right, okay, that's definitely in
A lot
any
of it
world
is
or by
fake.
any standards acceptable. But of course, this is a larger debate that we seem to be drifting towards, but we have also run out of time. Would like to thank all my guests for being a part of this incisive conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.